Briefly sunnier for a time across parts of the Midlands and the East Anglia, but a lot of us, it's not going to be the most inspiring of starts to the new week, but it will still be fairly mild, a little bit cooler than it has been over the weekend thanks to a bit more of a northerly wind. And then going into Tuesday, still on the cloudy side across a good chunk of England and Wales with some further outbreaks of rain across the east. It does cheer up for a time across Northern Ireland and Scotland with some sunnier spells here, but then later on some further cloud and outbreaks of rain moves in across the far northwest of Scotland. Middle of the week, drier and brighter in the south.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Your top stories from the GB newsroom. The Israeli military has released video footage of what they say are hostages being kept in Al-Shifa hospital. The IDF alleges Hamas have hostages trapped inside and that a captive soldier had been executed. They say one hostage is from Nepal, one is from Thailand, and they were allegedly taken from Israel on October 7th. It comes as Israel's ambassador to the US earlier told ABC News he's hopeful a significant number of hostages will be released in the coming days. More than 200 were taken by Hamas on the 7th of October. So far, 4 have been released. The Israeli military has also released footage which it says shows a 55-metre-long terror tunnel 10 metres deep underneath Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. It says the footage clearly proves that numerous buildings in the hospital's complex are used by Hamas as cover for terrorist activities. Hamas has denied those allegations. Now, GB News understands that Russell Brand has been interviewed by police A man in his 40s, believed to be the actor and comedian, attended a police station in South London on Thursday. He was interviewed under caution by detectives in relation to 3 non-recent sexual offences. Homes near new electricity pylons could stand to benefit by up to £10,000 over a decade. The government set to announce the move to overcome planning objections and speed up the approval of new energy infrastructure. Homeowners could get £1,000 off their household bills every year, though the Treasury hasn't specified where that money will come from. Elsewhere, plans to use drones as first responders in police emergencies are being trialled next year. The cutting-edge concept, known as Project Eagle X, is to be tested in Norfolk. If successful, the flight devices would be stationed on buildings and operated remotely to give police early information on a situation before crews arrive. And finally, a service was held at the Cenotaph in London today, commemorating the 102nd anniversary of the first wreath-laying by Jewish veterans. Service people and families of the fallen marched together down Whitehall to honour those who fought and served for freedom since the First World War. The first Star of David wreath was laid in 1921 by a group of Jewish ex-soldiers. This year's parade also marked the 80th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and 70 years since the end of fighting in the Korean War. You're with GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now time for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, here to take you through Monday's top stories. Tonight, I'm joined by 2 capricious comedians, Lewis Schaefer and Kerry Marks. What does capricious mean?
I was just asking that question. It means maybe you go to the island off the coast of Naples.
Very nice, little pun there. How are you doing, Kerry? All right?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm very capricious right now.
Feeling I'm so capricious.
I am.
Okay, we should point out this is the first ever all-Jew lineup. How do you? Lewis is not happy about this.
Don't think it's all the time.
This is Jews control the media for 1 hour.
For 1 hour, this is special.
On a Sunday night.
Well, you know how it is we have to have balance, and this is also wrong. People don't like the Jews the way they used to like them.
They don't like you.
They never liked them.
You know what?
Glory days you remember.
You know what? These people like me out there. You can tweet. You can tweet that you like me.
Thank you so much.
Because I
Look
like
how desperate. You're so needy. You're so desperate. It's
so ridiculous.
So very, very Jewish. Right, let's look at those front pages. We have the Daily Express. Chancellor, you must honour your pension pledge. The iNews, tax cuts for business are my priority, says Hunt. Sun, nuke sub mins from disaster. The Financial Times, pressure mounts on OpenAI board to reinstate Altman as chief executive. That's a very, very interesting story. And Metro, Met Police quiz Brand. Telegraph, Israel on brink of hostage agreement. And those were your front pages. Lewis, what is on the cover of the Telegraph?
Israel again.
Oy
right?
vey. Oy.
Israel on the brink of a hostage agreement. And this is an interesting story because basically the ambassador to the United States from Israel said that there might be an agreement. And Netanyahu, who's the prime minister, president of Israel, he said
you're very informed.
He said there isn't, and they're arguing, and they say they might release 50.
12. They were like 12, more than 12, dozens of 12.
Right. Which isn't, can I just say this? This is something that Israel does. They've done historically. They've paid a lot of attention to getting the hostages out. Yeah. No one left behind, like what they say with the Marines in America. And I personally think that a lot of people are saying that might be a mistake to do. That, you know, you gotta fight to get them all out. And stop it from happening again.
Well, there's different things. I mean, Kerry, this is good news. I mean, that surely, I know it is, Israel's priority is to bring them home, to bring these 240 hostages back. We have babies, there are children. I was just with someone earlier this evening who has their cousin who has been kidnapped. I mean, I don't think people appreciate what a small country it is and how everybody's been impacted.
I think also it's we've got to wait to see what Israel has to agree to. You know, a ceasefire for a few days is certainly on the cards.
Which is what they're talking about.
But this is being brokered in. It's being the peace talks being hosted in Qatar, which is of course also the country which hosts the leaders of Hamas, and the country which hosted peace talks a few days ago. Not peace talks actually, but talks on what to do about Israel-Palestine with Assad and Iran involved and so on. Which,
I mean, Assad's only killed 600,000 Muslims.
Well, that's exactly.
So...
There's no. It's odd that there's all this attempt to get a ceasefire, which is, sure, that's understandable if that's going on with all the other conflicts. There's around 50 conflicts going on in the world right now, and there's no talk of doing anything about.
Well, the whole point about ceasefire is that everybody has to commit to a ceasefire, where officials of Hamas said we'll do it again and again in terms of attacking civilians and whatnot.
Yeah, because it's also been the Hamas way in the past to attack, and then Israel attacks back, and then instantly we hear a shout for ceasefire. If the ceasefire happens, they celebrate a win. So everything's changed this time with the hostages, I think, really.
Well, that is absolutely seems to be the priority. If they do manage to get back some of the hostages, or even all of the hostages, would that then lessen Israel's case? I don't know. I'm looking at you, Lewis. You're an idiot. I mean, I don't know why I'm coming to you for world politic affairs.
Well, have you ever let hostages go?
How long have you been roast?
I've heard you never let go of hostages go.
You know what? A case can be made that I'm a hostage in this country. Maybe it's time for me to go home. Is that Israel historically has weakened its position by giving up, by letting their enemy take hostages. And then paying.
Well, they had 2 hostages taken, and I think they gave 1,000 or whatever.
Yes.
And the person who they gave over last time, one of those 1,000 or so hostages that they gave back, turned out to be the person who masterminded the attack.
Totally.
So there's more stuff that's going to be.
So I was going to say, it's also, you wonder why they're even discussing it at this point, because it makes you feel that Israel's really scaring them this time. I think Israel's gone much further than they were planning. They thought it would happen, there'd be a bit of an attack, there'd be a ceasefire, that would be it. And what's also happening is, the UNRWA, the UNWRA, who've clearly been very involved with Hamas for a long time. And there's been information coming out. We've known that they help to supply arms, they help to supply educational equipment to the schools that is not very complimentary to Jewish people, as in kill them. And with tunnels that Israel is saying are going into UNRWA schools, I think the UN is also panicking right now and saying everything's going to come out and it's going to be too obvious soon.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Everybody just wants to get these hostages home. That's the priority.
Well, listen, they're not my children that are there. They're not my family members that are.
Yeah, otherwise you wouldn't care.
But I do care, and I shouldn't care because it's not good for comedy to care. Comedy is not about caring. Sorry, it's not about caring. It's about being disinterested and trying to be funny about it. Yeah. But my personal opinion is I don't think that they should have a ceasefire, Israel. They should just keep on going.
I think they're just talking about a few days. What the best take, they have to care about citizens. Also, what we haven't talked about is the momentous pressure on Netanyahu by Israeli citizens to get these, kidnapped victims home. And
Netanyahu's finished, right? I mean, he has to be absolutely finished after this. He's played his hands awfully and let down the country terribly. But look, let's see what happens. I mean, if they let all the hostages go, I mean, ideally they should let the hostages go and surrender, and then Israel should stop them immediately. That's what
you say
happen,
but then you still have an existential threat on their borders, and that's the next debate. Anyway. Oh, God, it's too depressing to think about what they're going through. Kerry, what are the Daily Mail leading with?
Well, just as we were, the last story is how we're on the brink of seeing hostages go. This one's a different brink. Are we finally on the brink of a real tax cut? So a bit of a come-down story after the last brink, really. This is just, a tax cut. This is because the Wednesday's autumnal statement is coming out.
Yep.
And people are hoping for a real tax break rather than a fake tax break.
Because we're rich.
I'm not quite sure what a fake tax break is, really.
The British people are now rich.
Are we rich?
Yes. Well, we're not as poor as we were, as we thought we were. That's the point. So we have more money to play with.
Have you?
Not me, gosh no. But I don't want to go into that stereotype. But but no, I mean, the point is the government now has more money than they thought they were going to have, and that there is now this leeway to provide a tax cut. Lewis, They were talking last week about that tax cut being an inheritance tax cut, and I think everybody very quickly realised that that would be a massive mistake for the optics of this government. Yeah. Do you think that they might actually... And I think at the time they were like, I was like, no, I'm not going to be doing it. Do you think he's been bullied into this?
I think that the tax cut is the smallest thing, that this country has bigger problems on its hands. Yeah. And the people, I don't know, maybe the people can't feel it. I totally feel it. I think this country is in big, big trouble. I think Rishi Sunak is, I just was at the Newcastle Conservative fundraiser.
Is this a humble brag or something?
Yeah, but kind of it is.
You did a gig?
I did kind of this gig. I totally just was
What do you mean
horrible.
you kind of did a gig? Did you do a gig?
No, well, I've seen Lewis. They're definitely kind of.
I've seen you kind of do most gigs, actually.
It was like after the show was over, it was completely a chaos.
Was it a meet and greet? Lewis Schaefer meet and greet?
Basically, that's what it becomes. I basically met everybody by the time I had to do my little thing. Anyway.
Did you do your act?
Whatever.
You've never done your act.
But I'm doing my act now. What do you get on my case, Carrie? Is it Carrie or Carrie?
I'll take whatever.
Okay. And no, but the point, you asked a really good question. How important is this? Rishi Sunak is using the old tropes to get reelected. The fact is, it's a new world on October 7th. It's a new world. And this is what I think.
Oh, what you're saying from what happened in Israel?
From what happened in Israel and what happened in what's happening in this country with the demonstrations, with the boat people. I think people are seeing an existential threat.
Lewis, I'm actually going to agree with you on that. We are, though, talking about taxes and whether that's going to be enough to appease people, because people are suffering out there.
It won't. Nobody has mentioned to me, we got to cut taxes 1%, 2%.
Well, we've got the highest taxes since World War II, so they've got to do something.
But you know what? Yes, we do. But it's the kind of thing like with I remember when I came to this country and petrol was so expensive, gasoline was so expensive. I thought, these people, why do they put up with it? But they put up with it because they're used to it. So that's why.
I mean, that's it. You've learned what it's like to be British. That's what we do.
Put up with it.
I think everyone's protesting about everything at the moment, and no one's really putting up with very much anymore.
No. Giving up on the petrol.
Maybe it seems like that to you.
Okay. Lewis, take us through the cover of the Metro. How else is the society?
Well, this is one of our own Met Police quiz Brand, Russell Brand, TV comic sex assault interview. And he's been interviewed under caution. I don't understand how this country works. I know I say that and you say, well, I should know. But if they have proof against him, in America, you don't get called into the police station where they say to you, I'm sorry, we don't have enough evidence against you. Would you talk to us for a couple of hours to give us evidence to
I think that's exactly how it works.
They do that.
No, that isn't how it works.
You need to watch more NYPD Blue.
No, they don't.
It's more about America, us or you?
Probably you guys.
We have watched Law and Order. I have watched every different incarnation of Law and Order.
I don't think that they do.
Now, we have to be
But they're not doing that. They're saying they're going to quiz him. I think they're actually giving him like a quiz. You know, like a pub quiz. They're going to ask him a different
I have to say we have to be quite careful about this because Lewis is a witness in this case. So we have to...
You should be careful about saying that. Say that was a joke. That was a total...
It wasn't a joke.
It wasn't a joke. But this obviously goes back... I mean, I saw a very funny set of Scott Capurro did the other day.
Yeah.
Where he was saying that Russell Brand paid Hamas to go and
I saw that, yeah.
Take the edge off.
to get the light off him. Now it's back on him. It seems like if these are the same allegations that came out a few months ago, it seems like we're talking about stuff that happened like 20 years ago.
Yeah. Right.
Not that makes it okay. And it seemed, look, we can't get into it, but I mean, is his career over? That's a very Mark Dolan question. I'd like to... give me a definitive statement.
Do you know
right
what?
now.
These days it's very hard to say, isn't it? Because in the past, the tiniest scandal could knock someone straight off the perch of whether it's in politics or anything else. But people seem to survive okay.
Well, that's why we're lucky, because of course we're not on a perch at all, so we're totally safe.
I think he's going to be okay because he has moved on into political stuff. It's like my saying is when a politician is bored of politics or fails at politics, they go into comedy. And when a comedian fails at comedy, they go into politics.
And you're the one who's been meeting with the Northwich Tory Society or whatever.
That's what we're going to find out, really.
Very quickly and finally,
if he gets arrested or not.
The world is actually ending now on the sun, Kerry.
This is a nuclear submarine which was minutes from disaster.
But they say mins. They can't do. This is the sun.
They're trying to get it. Yeah.
Trying to fit it in
from disaster. It was sinking towards its crush depth, which is, I think, the moment where it just splats inwards, presumably.
Yeah, I'm a scientist.
Implodes rather than explodes. It's not the crush depth is not where it falls in love with another submarine, which would be really lovely because we could make loads of them that way. So I believe it sunk, and they've managed to save it. There's no details here yet. I assume that's the whole of the paper of how they've managed to save it, but they have, and I'm very happy for them. I hate drowning myself. Yes. Totally against it. I find it's awful.
But, I mean, this is an indication of how old these subs are. Do we need more subs? I mean, they cost billions.
I think we need more subs more than we need aircraft carriers or any of those other ships, which in the Ukraine situation has proven that aircraft carriers and other big ships, I don't even know if they have battleships anymore, but they're sitting targets. I mean, what could go wrong? It's a submarine. I mean, we know submarines are like a bit scary.
OK, thank you very much, Lewis. Yes, he's going to start crying. That's it for part one, but coming up, we've got people protesting protest policing, the Tories' war on red tape, and the cost of drugs going up and up. Don't worry, I know a guy. See you in a minute.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GBNews.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, still here with little Louis Schaefer and Caro Marks, the forgotten Marks brother. Starting with the Express, Kerry. And half of the UK think police deal with climate protests badly, while the other half didn't get to vote as they're still stuck in traffic behind a moron in a Just Stop Oil t-shirt.
Yeah, this is a new poll. Half of the population believe that police deal with protests badly. We should have a protest, you know, against the police, a protest against protesting of the protests.
Yeah, we'll show them.
Protest.
But that's the one they'll probably come really hard down on.
Yeah. I feel sorry for the police sometimes. I mean, to be honest, they got a difficult job because whatever they do, they're going to be criticised by. But you know, some people want them to be tougher, other people just want them to be more
want to rape those people,
and so on. They have no one protecting them, the police. And so what this is, it said that 41% said the police performed well, 40% think they have not. That's with the pro-Palestinian one. And with that one, the question is really, do the police step back a bit when they're overwhelmed by 100,000 people?
And is that a necessary tactic?
They have to, because once they get stuck in, it could lead to a riot, which is probably their main intention is to avoid that. But what there is, I think also, you know, we get these protests like these Just Stop Oil, and they glue themselves to roads, which they shouldn't be the ones doing that. It should be us gluing them to the roads, really. That would be a way to stop them doing it. So it's amazing they've thought of it themselves. But I think part of the problem is we do this to ourselves. On the news, we can't help it. On the news, if someone throws paint over a painting, for example, that's the one we're going to talk about. Whereas really what we should do, if we want to change the country, is at the beginning of the news, we should reward all the good protesters. You know?
I see. Okay,
all the good protests
for good behaviour.
Yes,
but you know what?
The bad ones are a little
look, the news,
you know?
and I'm not talking about us, but I have seen protests which have had large figures which mysteriously aren't covered by the BBC or whatnot.
Yeah, sure.
But this is slightly different here because obviously Suella Braverman lost her job last week. That was on the back of her writing this article talking about this two-tiered policing. The National Police Chiefs Council said all groups or causes are treated impartially. Now, that is just not true. Lewis, surely we're not seeing that. This weekend, we've seen the footage online. You saw outside Keir Starmer's office, you had a group of Islamists basically talking about how he has a Zionist wife. You saw the stuff, do you see the stuff outside Number 10? You had these jihadists chasing after a Zionist that they supposedly saw. You have people intimidating MPs. We can't continue like this.
Well, that's the right point. The right point is that this study is very distressing. It's not like saying that the police are balanced or half and half. It's saying that the country is divided, that half the people think that the police did well, and the other half think the police didn't do well. And so you can't have a country that is this divided. And I understand what you said, which is if the police go in there and they battle, then there's a riot, and the police in their hearts know that they don't have the support of the populace, and that's...
I disagree with you. I think they do have the support of the populace. I think more people are waking up to this. I think that's an incredibly high figure to see that over half the population believe that they're dealing with it badly. I think that number's going to get worse. And on top of that, and this is the real danger as far as I'm concerned, is you are seeing an emboldenment of very bad behaviour, arguably moving into dangerous behaviour.
Yes, and that's where the problem is that they have that. I know you think you're seeing some kind of rise against this kind of bad behaviour. I don't see rise against the bad behaviour. I see half the population thinks, you know what, maybe they have a point, and maybe they've got a point.
All right, well, we'll... Yeah,
what do you say?
You're a glass half police full disagree.
Well, that's what the survey is, isn't it? It's a glass half full. Half the country thinks one thing. I don't know. I haven't seen the question they were asked.
Okay.
You know, to say, do the police behave well or behave badly, what does that mean? You'd have to give examples and say, should the police have done something more about this particular...
Harry, could you stop with your bloody reasoning?
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
You know what? I agree with him on this.
Mr. Reasonable.
On to the Mirror. Lewis, and is the UK welfare system broken? Judging by your social media, they've only been giving you raw meat to live on.
Yeah, it is. I've been part of it slightly. Britain
abusing the system.
I never abuse the system. Britain has one of the meanest welfare systems in Europe, for unemployed economists warned. They didn't say how much money that someone out of work gets.
Yeah, but I mean, you were on the dole for quite a minute.
I know. I was not. It was a very short time. It was during
20 years?
COVID. No, it was not. No, it was not.
I refuse to believe that you've ever made a living through stand-up.
Very good. I wouldn't call it a living. I made it not even a loving. Anyway, this is a study that they did. The Institute for Fiscal Studies say that other countries are nicer to losers who. Sorry, and that's me. That's me. We shouldn't. The problem is you can't. I'm only a winner. Only a winner. Thank you. When it comes to getting an award from most complaints to Ofcom. The point is that over the past 50 years, according to them, there's been no real increase in benefits, but also means there's been no real decrease. So these people out there who are collecting benefits, I feel bad for you. Even though there are a million jobs out there.
Okay, well, the thing is, Kerry, actually, what's interesting about universal credit is that half the people who are on universal credit do have a job. Yeah, and universal credit is a way of topping up their income to a livable level, and the whole point of that was to get people into work. If they're not getting paid enough to survive, that money's getting cut.
Seems to be getting paid enough at the moment. That's why everyone's on strike, right? It's we're not getting paid enough.
You're getting paid? Yeah, I'm not getting paid.
I'll tell you that. I mean, we're all doing, like, as comedians, we're all doing the gigs that we said we'd never do again.
Yeah. Next week I'm doing the Norwich Tory Society.
Yeah. You know what? They're lovely people. I disagree with a lot of them. Anyway.
But this is a study by the Department of Fiscal Studies, which is what they do, or the Institute of Fiscal Studies. And Paul Johnson said that a lot of people are currently out of work in a time of tight labour market, which I assume means there aren't many jobs available, the tight labour market.
No, that's not true.
That's what he's saying, though, right?
But is it not true? I think they're looking for people. And the fact is that the government is paying people to work, means it's subsidizing the richest businesses to hire people for cheaper. So basically, any of you people who are taxpayer, you're basically subsidizing Amazon so that they can get cheap workers to put you out of business if you.
Man.
Yeah.
Look at you. You tell them.
I speak directly to the people. They're my people out there.
The point is, though, we're the worst in Europe. So I think British people normally like being the best or the worst in something, and normally we're quite happy with the worst, aren't we?
Well done, Britain.
You're well done, Britain. Well, for a while there was Hull has had a load of money invested in recent years, but for a while Hull was always the worst city in the country. Yeah. And then one day they got voted the second worst in the country, and I saw some comedian on stage telling them that, and they booed. They were really unhappy about it.
They're proud of it.
Lost our place,
Sorry, Hull. On to the Daily Mail now, and good news for people who hate regulations, as the government brings in new regulations to regulate the over-regulation. The system works, Kerry.
Yeah. The Tory MPs have proposed anti-red tape law. We need a new law to get rid of red tape to address concerns over officials pushing for more regulations. And a source in Whitehall has said you get promoted for cutting. So you don't get promoted for cutting regulations. You get promoted for introducing them. So a really good idea would be to swap that little clause around, wouldn't it, and promote people for getting rid of them. And they want a one-in, one-out rule. So, in other words, when a new piece of red tape comes in, we get rid of a piece of red tape. It would seem better if we
Lewis's
just had...
marriage.
Don't tell them.
It might be better if we just had an out rule, really. Then we get rid of the red tape. I can't imagine anyone's going to argue this. I can't hear anyone say, yes, we need more red tape.
Well, I mean...
I'll argue it.
OK, well, look, the point about red tape, because it seems to be there's some interesting definition. For me, red tape is just more, you need red tape because it's the devil's in the details. That's how these things happen. But what they seem to be saying is red tape is what leads to extra costs.
And I think we're talking about the bureaucracy of it. Bureaucracy isn't efficient.
Well, but bureaucracy that you have to pay for. But in terms of, passing legislation, this is part of reaching compromise, isn't it, Lewis?
Yes, it is, by keeping an eye on people. But this is, historically, I'm a libertarian. I don't know if I still am, but I'm a libertarian. And I'm against red tape, Carrie and Josh.
So am I.
But I will say this, sometimes the more red tape you have, basically crushes the country, and then eventually it gets...
Actually, I genuinely thought you were having a stroke there.
Yeah, I was worried. I generally think you're always having a stroke. I think you were born having a stroke and you've just never stopped.
Well, you know what? I do have very high blood pressure.
I don't know what red tape we're talking about. Which particular law or...
there's a million laws.
It's a general thing, isn't it? It could mean anything, though.
I'm going to tell you something. When they say get rid of a law, it's probably a very... They install some bit of red tape, and they take away a teeny little bit of red tape. Yeah. And it probably takes more energy to argue over getting rid of the little bit of red tape than it does just to,
Do you know what? I'm for red tape, just because I want to stand against Lewis. Whatever you're saying, I want the opposite.
I said I'm saying
You're against red tape.
No, I'm in favour of it.
No, but then he'll flip his position to do it, Eric.
Yeah.
Right, iNews now and the NHS faces eye-watering costs for branded drugs, which I suppose is good news for people with dry eyes, Lewis.
It is. It's very good news, and I know how the pharmaceutical industry will probably come up with...
You sure do. Big Pharma, hey, Lewis.
Yeah, that's
Big
what
Pharma.
I am. And I tell you, they're going to come up with some kind of new drug for watery eyes that's going to reduce your watery eyiness 1% and charge you a fortune. This is anything to do with the Drug Association. I just turn off because they are evil. Those people are evil. I don't believe in drugs anymore. I used to take drugs for 40 years. I took high blood pressure medication, amlodipine. I took
marijuana, cocaine.
I took enalapril. I've taken all the drugs.
Someone needs more drugs.
Yeah. And I'm in favor of... I'm not in favor of drugs that make you happy, but anything that the pharmaceutical industry is peddling.
You're not in favour of drugs that make you happy.
Should we just explain the story?
I'll explain the story.
Okay.
Why you interrupted me?
Because you just want to go on about Big Pharma. Kerry, explain the story.
Carry on.
We've got a deal that's coming to an end,
There was a deal called this Voluntary Scheme on Pricing, Access and Growth, VPAG. Sounds like some kind of...
And those poor drug companies only made $12 billion in profit.
Yeah, they only made $12 billion on 10 drugs, on the 10 top drugs, and I mentioned some of those 10 top drugs. And those drugs don't even work. We don't need drugs. Okay. We just need to eat meat,
for Ofcom reasons.
Stop us from having type 2 diabetes.
I need to say, audience, please still keep on taking your drugs.
Yeah, well, obviously we could reduce the amount of drugs people are taking. Like people who have amnesia and take drugs for that. They're not going to know, are they? We can knock a few off. We could... The point is, look, this is interesting. The markup on the drugs is huge. There's been a markup of 23,000%.
Yeah.
Now, does that sound large to you? I think that sounds... Someone's making a hell of a lot of profit. And they argue that these profits are running into the billions are necessary to fund research into medical treatments, which... and the key research is done by public-funded institutions.
Yeah, so that's the crazy thing.
I think the thing is, I could do it cheaper. If they want to get the drugs, I know someone, right? And he'll meet you down the alleyway. He'll be late.
Well,
that's his thing.
Kerry, you're really mastering that look. Right, that's it for part 2, but coming up we'll have BBC climate hypocrisy and some pretty dodgy school gender policy. Quelle surprise. See you in a minute.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's on your teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. We jump in with the Express, and the government elites want to ask our school children their sex and gender. I thought the police had already looked into that, Kerry.
It's criticism of the equalities watchdog. They want to ask school children about sex and gender, which I assume means the equalities watchdog don't know anything about sex and gender, and they want to ask children about it. Yeah. Rather odd.
It's a very confusing subject, isn't it?
They want to, it's to protect children from being bullied. So they feel that asking them about sex and gender, well, yeah, OK, we're all for stopping bullies. And particularly, but they're only interested whether people are being bullied for sex and gender. I'm not sure whether this is just encouraging an obsession with sex and gender. That we've gone all this time without anyone being obsessed with sex and gender, most of history, and I don't think this really changes a whole lot. I don't see why in the survey they don't find out what other bullyable factors someone might have. You know, are you short? Are you tall? Do you have a speech impediment? I think the best thing they could actually do is instead would be to survey the children and ask them whether they're bullies. You know,
well,
don't do that.
This is one of the points that's being made. Exactly that is. It's about focus on the bullies. Teach them that bullying is wrong, regardless of whatever characteristic you.
But like sorry,
Kerry.
No, carry on.
Kerry says.
You go ahead.
It's not about that.
As long as you're agreeing.
It's about inculcating them in the idea that they could be a victim, to join the victim class, and to join the army of victims out there when you're 5 years old. If you don't, you have to put the seed in a child's head that they're a trans.
You should never put a seed in a child's head, mate.
That's where Lewis has been going wrong with his parenting.
It's as young as 5, isn't it?
No, this is what it says in the article. Yeah, 5 or 6, and they're being asked about these things. Now, sexuality is different, but being asked about your gender identity, these are adult concepts. To introduce them at that age is ridiculous, and has been argued here, a safeguarding issue.
There's a video, sorry, I was going to say, there's a video that's done really well on YouTube of a very little child of about that age who's being offered a choice between $10,000 or 2 Oreos. And he chooses the 2 Oreos.
He chooses to be a girl.
I don't think he's not going to be an expert at sex and gender and knowing what he is anyway at that point.
Well, Oreos are very, very delicious.
Yeah, they are good. They are good. £5,000.
Enough to identify as one?
Well, probably the other way around.
Oh, really? The Daily Mail next, and the BBC have made it clear that we need to change our lifestyles to solve climate change, unless, of course, you happen to work for the BBC. You're a big fan, right?
Yes, I love the BBC because of the letters. They're right there in the early part of the alphabet. So MP accuses the BBC of rank hypocrisy.
I know, the worst kind of hypocrisy.
Really bad, smelly.
I don't know what that means, what rank hypocrisy means.
Stinky.
Okay, because they tells the broadcaster to practice what they preach. After there's a program on Bananarama or Panorama.
Well, they went and got some bananas for Bananarama. Is that what you're saying?
This guy, Richard Bilton, made a program where he flew all around the world, basically emitting carbon dioxide. And
he was, or
out of his mouth.
Plane was. Well, as humans, that's what we do. We convert fat. When we eat, goes out.
But it might have been the planes that did it.
So would you not interrupt me? I'm going to try to get this story. I don't want to be a presenter. I want you to tell the story, and then I'll put my 2 cents in.
Carry on with your show.
My show is Dame Andrea thank you very much, Carrie. I love you. Dame Andrea Jenkins. She's a Conservative MP. She says she calls them a bunch of hypocrites because they're wasting a lot of fossil fuel, flying all over the world, when they tout their green credentials. And my point is...
Yeah, oh, here we go. Well, he's got the fingers out, everybody.
It's a big one.
The BBC is a news organization. They should not have green credentials. They should be neutral.
Carbon neutral or neutral in their...
Just neutral about it.
About their stuff.
Because There are people out there who think that this is a climate scam. There is no climate crisis.
Well, I think we need to do an investigation into the investigation and fly all over the world to see.
Have they done a survey to find out how many people think this is a climate scam? I'm pretty sure a lot of people are watching Lewis.
I don't think a survey is how you decide science, though, is it? Like,
well, consensus.
Let's just decide if it's true or not.
Okay, did you just hear what he said? He said a survey isn't the way, but that's what they did. They gave us 97%.
Let's get back to the story. Kerry, does this MP know how TV programmes are made?
Obviously not at all. But look, there is a hypocrisy to it. It's a bit like talking about a water shortage whilst running a bath. You know, it's a bit like a book. When you do get books, actually, on the problem with deforestation. So it's got that kind of ironic stupidity to it.
You push that.
Yes, I know. I could do a few more, but we haven't got time. I do get the irony, but at the same time, it's BBC making a TV programme, and you'd expect the person to go all over the place. You know, doing it by Zoom wouldn't have been such a great show for BBC,
footage.
really.
Yeah.
But they could be more like GB News is, and then not fly any of us anywhere.
I know we're all going to be getting the night buses home, aren't we?
and deny this quote-unquote climate crisis.
Oh, my God. Well, now I just got to go and do an Ofcom thing and say there is a... Lewis, please. Stop it.
Do it.
No, I'm going to get on with the next story.
Look, there's a Lewis crisis. Let's all agree with that.
Constantly. We stick with the Telegraph, Lewis, and it's always heartwarming to see civil servants sporting anti-Western racist propaganda, especially when it comes wrapped in a catchy slogan.
Yes, I must have lost that. Hold on.
Senior civil servant.
Senior civil servant.
I don't agree with you.
Yeah. I don't agree with you. Senior civil servant wore Black Lives Matter lanyard. That's one of those words you don't use as often as you'd like to. This woman at meetings for her department, which was the Department of, she's the Department of Health and Social Care. I never understood how many departments this government has, but has a lot. And she wore a BLM logo, and you're not, according to the Civil Service Code, you're not supposed to do that.
You're meant to be impartial.
You're meant to be impartial.
Yeah.
But I would say, is my impartiality, you can't control the opinions of everybody. That's what they try to do with...
Yeah, but can you control how they show their opinions? That's surely the point. And express them. And sorry, I just want to say something about here. There's also she had a poster of the miners' strike in the background. But what a sort of little point that they don't really go into. It was on Zoom.
Yeah.
So if that's her home, I mean, if she's deliberately putting a poster up to make a point or wearing the lanyard to make a point, then arguably that is wrong. But if it's that's what she might just be the kind of person who just likes to bath in her BLM lanyard. Yeah. She just loves wearing a BLM.
I don't agree. I think there's a place for professionalism, and I think you know, in the workplace,
in the wrong place.
Well, the same as you had that tube driver recently who did a River of the Sea shout, and I think when you're doing your job and your job is not to be pushing your opinions on other people, I don't think it's the right place for it. And you know, it's a thin end of the wedge, because next thing she's going to be turning up with placards and stuff and getting cheers going in the workplace.
But in her private time, she should be allowed to.
Well, yeah, in her home, I get what you're saying, but nevertheless, she's at work right now. She's at her home and she's doing a Zoom call, which is her job.
Yeah.
And I think there's nothing harmful about just being professional and not being divisive in that situation. But I really think, looking at the story, I think she was just trying to get laid. That's my theory.
That's because that's what does it for you.
Find that attractive.
Well, you know, I find other people who agree with you. You know,
agree with you. Can I just say,
breaks the ice.
I changed my mind.
Great.
Right, well, in that case, I changed my mind, so I disagree.
Finally, in this
with
section of Times, yet another story about race. In this instance, the women's 200 metres, Kerry.
What are you talking about? Oh, here we are. You threw me with that one.
Listen, I'm the incompetent one on this show.
Yeah, I'm trying to challenge you. This is from the Times. Bianca Williams, it says the Times headline is what her case tells us about the culture war at the heart of the Met. And then they ramble on for several pages without telling us the answer to that. They've just thrown it out as a question.
It's a very long article, but actually it's quite comprehensive, I thought.
It is a long article, and it's about a black couple who was stopped because it's relevant to mention they're black. They're saying they were stopped because they were black. So the argument at the time was that they'd ignored the flashing light of the blue car. And then they were accused of having drugs, a smell of marijuana in the car, which turns out the cop was lying about.
4 cops had said this.
What's that?
4 cops had said this. 2 have been since fired, I believe.
Were you there?
No, well, I'm just reading.
You seem to know a lot.
Yeah, I do seem to know a lot. But this, I mean,
it's our job.
And the evidence. I mean, this is a very damning article. The whole case is arguably very damning, and that's really what it's about for the Met. Because now because it was tinted windows in a sports car, there is no evidence that the Met saw them as a black hole. But when you read the story, it's quite horrific. They're arrested, they had their baby in the car, they'd been proven they hadn't done anything wrong at all, this argument. And the Met, when it first came out in the video, the Met were like, they were speeding and there was all this, and it turns out that's just not true.
I agree with you, but I think that, well, it looks like what the Times is making the main story is about the money that the crowdfunder that was raised for the sacked officer. The officer's been sacked. Yeah. And a crowdfunder has raised £155,000, which they say is £3,000 short of the crowdfunding campaign to support the family of Sergeant Graham Saville, who was killed by a train in August while saving a member of the public, which does seem like outrageous that that's what. But obviously that's for the public to choose. That's what a crowdfunder is. It's not. I think often we go with this false equivalence. And we say this thing should get more money than that thing, but it's not the way reality works.
You definitely should not get as much as Lewis. Lewis, do you want to quickly say something about this? No? Great. OK, that's it for part 3, but coming up in the final section, we have men patronising women, men paying women to stay at home, and men hiring women as fake girlfriends. Can someone please tell our producer to stop watching Andrew Tate? We'll catch you at 2.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I can't believe they paid you that much. Anyway, welcome back to Headliners. We jump back in with the Daily Mail, and studies show men let women win games to keep them sweet. Presumably women will start doing this with arguments, Lewis.
Yes, yes, this is an interesting study that comes out of China, and we know what we can do. We can believe what China says, especially with the COVID stuff. Anyway, it says...
Well done for bringing that in, Lewis.
Study... these people know.
Yeah.
I don't believe anything anymore.
Tell the story. We've got 6 minutes.
I'm going to say it, Josh. You're always interrupting. interrupting me. Study reveals
do the story.
that men let their partners win in games to keep them happy. And it's a whole long study, basically, how they're proven that when a man plays a woman in a game like chess or something, that the woman always wins more when it's her partner playing, but wins less when it's a stranger.
You like to play strip chess with your wife, right?
Anyway, it implies that the men let women, their partners win, because a happy wife is a happy life.
Do you agree with this, Kerry?
Can I finish my one joke?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, okay, go.
Says happy wife, happy life. I always say, happy wife, just slightly less miserable life for you. Slightly less. You're still going to be miserable, even if your wife is unbelievably happy.
Yeah. Do I get a turn?
Kerry, do you want to tell your joke?
I thought I came here for a reason. But look, I'll tell you what's true, is that what they've discovered is that men are more likely to let women win at a game if they're going to have sex with them. That's what this is about. This is like saying that the business people are more likely to let their boss win at the golf than if their boss plays someone who it doesn't matter with. So it's silly. But basically, what happens is they're saying during a relationship, women will win. They don't have to try as hard at these games. They will win more likely. And then when they break up with a person, they suddenly discover they're absolutely rubbish at tiddlywinks and chess. Yeah. And that's why they rush straight into another
Anyone who follows me on Twitter will know that I'm massively into my board games, and I destroy my wife. We stick with the Daily Mail, and they say that being a housewife is the hardest job in the world, in which case this woman needs to up her wages, Kerry.
What another Sunday story this is.
The Daily Star coming through.
Sunday where all sorts of stories have run out, and this is my older hubby pays me $100 a week to be a housewife. It's the best job I've ever had. So she was the woman saying this, called Alyssa Drummond, was in the military, and I kind of agree with her. I'd rather be a housewife than be shot at personally. Although I'm not sure $100 is that much for it. But then she says. It says Alyssa is now urging other women to do the same, and it's got this kind of ring to it that she's kind of discovered being a housewife. You know, something that's been around for all of human history and has kind of changed in the last few decades. But you know, last time I was on the program, we were talking about how Gen Z are into silent walking now, of walking around without headphones and mobile phones, and this is the same. People realise there's a thing called being a housewife. You should try it. It's really good.
I mean, what do you think? $100 is enough for you, Lewis?
Well, you know what? It's not. It wouldn't. First of all, $100 is enough for me. I would basically stay home for £100. You know what? Can I do my joke? I wrote a joke.
Okay. She says here she hits out at feminist clowns, and I think feminist clown is a tough job. You know, no makeup.
Oh, that's funny.
Thank you. On to the Daily Mail now, and lonely people in Japan are renting fake girlfriends. That was called something different in our day, Kerry.
Where are we?
Oh, I think they've floated that. We've gone straight to.
Oh, okay.
No. You know what? Let's do Doomsday Vaults. Doomsday Vaults. Let's do it.
Okay. This is me. Thank you very much. Doomsday. We're very professional. It's not just me. Anyway, Doomsday Vault, storing seeds, data, and DNA to protect our future. And this is an article about a place in Britain that stores seeds. Like this is news. Every single country in the entire world has places that they store seeds for the non-rain.
Where do you store your seed, Lewis?
Well, my wife took some of it, and
disgusting.
It's horrible. Anyway, the point is, this is like Carrie says, it's one of those Sunday non-stories. Okay. This is a non-story.
Yeah, Lewis is just angry because he just doesn't like just any idea that there's healthy seeds out there.
This is a story they could save for any day, isn't it? They could in 5 years.
They've got this in the vault. Ironically, they have this in the vault.
No. For any day they can have it. You know, I've got my calendar coming up, and I think there's some might be available. This is Louis Schaefer, comedian, troublemaker.
All right. Well, you know what? We have just enough time to do the story that we were going to do about Japanese girlfriends and boyfriends, fake girlfriends and boyfriends.
Oh, okay. So there's revealed has been a loneliness epidemic in Japan. We should isolate them. Yeah. We don't want to catch loneliness, do we?
They like to isolate themselves.
Isolate the lonely people.
Well, they're on an island off the coast of America.
So they're getting fake girlfriends, which Basically, as far as I can see, this is what we have always known as escorts, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that sex is involved. I think it seems to be more that people want.
I don't think you have to have sex with an escort. This is a
yes,
choice.
I do.
They're not going to.
Oh, yes, you do.
You paid money. I was
hoping I was revealing something for you that might improve your life.
I think it's not just escorts. I think with every relationship, I think my girlfriend's a fake girlfriend. She I don't know what she's.
Well, online, you're constantly trying to pull online, aren't you?
Well, because I need an option when this thing goes bad. Yeah, Louis Schaefer. Yeah, ladies, any takers, call me. Call me. Yeah.
Lewis, would you pay for a girlfriend? I mean, I guess you're going to say we all pay for girlfriends and boyfriends.
Will you pay for mine?
Would I pay to have a girlfriend? Yeah, I remember one time when I was younger, just for fun, I used to call up helpline numbers, like for American Airlines, and I used to book a flight across the country just to hear the voice of the woman.
No, you didn't.
I did.
That's how lonely you were.
It's horrible.
I was totally lonely too. Unfortunately, at my age, I pray for loneliness.
So this is your advice to Japanese people: is book fake flights online just to talk to people.
Just to talk to the American Airlines.
We've all had fake girlfriends.
And then call up Hertz, rent a car and organise a car, and then call up the hotel company and get your hotel.
OK, there we go. We're learning so much.
They say it's cheaper than an actual girlfriend, though.
Right.
So.
The show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Monday's front pages. The Daily Express: Chancellor, you must honour pension pledge. iNews: tax cuts for business are my priority, says Hunt. Sun: nuke sub mins from disaster. Mins from disaster, not minutes. Financial Times: pressure mounts on OpenAI board to reinstate Altman as chief executive. I'm gutted that we missed out that story.
Yeah.
The Metro: Met Police quiz brand. And Telegraph: Israel on brink of hostage agreement. And those are your front pages. That's it for tonight's show. Thank you to Lewis and Kerry. Simon Evans is going to be back tomorrow at 11 p.m, joined by me and Nick Dixon. If you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Hope you had a great weekend.
Don't talk about my business.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
No, thank you. My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?